Okay, hey everybody, this is Brett from Moonstream Crypto, and in this video we're going to talk about Bitcoin and the altcoins. Are we in alt season? Also, we're going to look at global M2 money supply and where I think things are headed here into September. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the charts and have a look at this. So we'll go full screen. Looking at Bitcoin, or the Fear and Greed Index rather, we are currently back down around 48, so that's good. We don't want to see Bitcoin all the way, or the Fear and Greed all the way in greed territory. Generally, that's when things pull back. Our better opportunities to buy are back when the Bitcoin Fear and Greed is down below here in the greed area, but I'm okay with neutral, right in the middle point. And that's also where the charts are at this point. We could go either way on the charts with Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and dive through these a little bit and go look at some basic things. Alt season, are we in alt season yet? We can see we are not in alt season, despite some of the other channels saying that we are and have been. We are not in alt season. We are kind of in the middle here, and we're going to look at Bitcoin dominance, which suggests that we could see a bounce in Bitcoin dominance and more money flowing back into Bitcoin and potentially pulling alt back down again. But we can see here with alt season here, we're in that mid range, so we could easily pull back down toward Bitcoin season, and then a final push to alt season, or continue on up into alt season. But I think probably this is going to happen a little bit later in the cycle. So moving right along, let's go to the next screen and look at the rainbow chart here, because this is the revised rainbow chart. The original one, which is kind of wrong here, these were we had price going outside the rainbow chart, so they did a revised version. I like this one better. And again, the red up top is maximum bubble territory, and we've hit that with the revised rainbow chart. We contained price here in that red version all the way through. Didn't quite get there in the last cycle. That's okay, but it might mean that we're seeing diminishing returns. And so from down here in the blue range, this is ideal place to buy. The ideal place to buy right here would have been around 16,500, which I had predicted 5 months prior to that. So we were buying right here in January of 2023. So on this cycle, it is dragging out quite a bit, but if we even get into the orange section, and not in the blood red necessarily, but even in the orange section, that gives us a range of 178K all the way up to 229K. You guys have been following my studies here. We've been projecting 150K to 200K since 2 years ago with the path to 150K model we may revisit here today. If we do get into the blood red range here, the blood red orange range up here, we could see 223 to 291. I did a study reverse engineering the last high low, suggesting we could go to 245K. If that's the case, then we might know where the next bear market bottom is, based on a very interesting fractal for the pullback from the last market, which was pi 3.14. Yes, no one else has done that study. It was kind of interesting, kind of by accident. So let's dive into the charts on the 1 hour, 4 hour Bitcoin. Lots of sell pressure overhead, as we can see here on the 1 hour and the 4 hour charts, and pushing up here to that 124K high. Incidentally, it had nothing to do with the Bitcoin price necessarily. That was coinciding with $4 trillion on the total market cap. Most people don't realize, and we'll look at that in a minute, that $3 trillion was the top of the market in 2021 to the dollar almost. So we want to be very mindful of those major milestones: 1 trillion, 2, 3, 4, and then when we hit 5 trillion, we will surely have a big pullback there as well. So anyway, but Bitcoin looking a bit bearish. These red zones are where we have visualized where the sellers are. These are our buy and sell blocks. You can learn more about our signals at cryptomastery.org. One of my partners is a former quant engineer, hedge fund manager, trader, and programmer. These are the best signals I've ever used. We can also see our dynamic average true range flipped into exit mode over here. People sometimes use this as a dynamic stop loss, trailing stop loss. So not to get into the weeds, I see more pressure for Bitcoin, probably come back down to that 108K level, around 106 potentially. So diving into the daily charts, we've seen a number of bull flags here, and so I think this is worth noting that we may be moving out of the 4-year cycle. And just hear me out. Instead of the 4-year pump and dump, or the pump and crash, I think we're moving into more of a pump and correction type of a market. We have to look at gold. When it first had its ETF come out, it became a lot more less volatile, a lot more stable, and continued higher. Some are saying that Bitcoin will just keep going up 20% per year without these major crashes. We shall see. Either way, our measured moves on some of these bull flag breakouts are at that 150K level. I've taken them off this chart because we had a lot going on here, but if we take this macro bull flagpole and the measured move on that puts us right up to 150K, which is my target on my other studies that you guys have seen before. So we have that in the near term. We were looking at around 130 to 135K. This was a bull flag breakout here, failure. So I'm wondering here, do we continue higher? Again, we have that big sell block overhead. And so pushing down into these other ranges could be next here. There was a sell block or a buy block around 106 on one of the other exchanges. Let me just check that out. Because these are sometimes different. Here it is on the overall index coming down. I have buy limit orders here at 106K. Nice healthy buy block in that range. And we can also see it here on Bitcoin and Tether on Binance. And if we jump over, I've got one more. So I always check multiple exchanges if it's an important one. Coinbase also showing that 106K level. So what could we do here from here? You know, a little bit of zigzag here, maybe a pullback where we have and continuing higher. We need to break this level, take out these sell blocks. There's a high concentration of sellers here. This invariably, by the way, has been one of the biggest advances in our trading arsenal. We saw where we came up right in the middle of this resistance zone and sell block, and sure enough, prices sold off. So we have been using these as optimal buy points. Right down here we saw was an excellent area to buy along with our other signals. So not to get too far into that, let's look at a weekly chart on Bitcoin. And also, you know, this 112K level has been very important, and so we need to see that hold for longer term trend lines to hold up. We took some stop losses just below that. I would rather buy into strength. So if we see this kind of close back above 112K, then I'll be slowly re-entering. But still have this downtrending parallel channel as well to contend with. We can see that money's flowing out of Bitcoin. We'll look at Bitcoin dominance in a minute. We may see that reverse. But from here and at a glance, Ethereum looking pretty strong in the middle of a buy block there. And although coming down, seeing red on our other signals, you know, I'm not convinced yet that ETH is ready to go, but we have multiple Fibonacci confluence. Not to get too far into the advanced stuff, this is about as advanced as I get, but I have two different Fib studies showing this $10,000 level. See this overlap right in that range. This one showing 10,280 and this one showing 10,600. So I think it's reasonable that ETH will get to 10,000 this cycle. It's just got to break back above and put in new highs here above that prior $5,000 high area. And then it's in price discovery, and then things can really take off. So until then, we just need to see this thing retrace a bit and potentially consolidate, and then should go. All right, Solana. Let's talk about Solana. I'm a big Solana bull here. We did take some off the table here with the pullbacks. I'm waiting to see if Solana can close above this level, this 209 level, and continue. Otherwise, if it closes below that, which we've been seeing end of day sell-offs, then more than likely we'll see this roll over. And here's why. Breakouts usually happen on the third or the fifth attempt, and right now we have seen 1, 2, and 3 attempts at 207, 208. We're currently on the fourth attempt, but in my experience, 25 years trading, generally it's third or fifth. So to see this kind of roll over, sell off end of day, and pull back down in the range of say 190, I'd be looking to buy on at 190, and then also maybe down here to the 185 region. But good areas to put your buy limit orders on Sol. I'm also waiting for our signals to start turning green again. Always like to buy into strength. The risk reward on this trade would have been if it came down lower, but at this point we're looking at, this is actually not relevant. That was we were looking for downside. So at any rate, lots of support in this range in 185 to 190. So on any pullback on Sol, be looking to get in. As we remember from last cycle, August 1st, I recommended Solana in our newsletter, and it was at $37. I said it's likely going to pull back to support at 35. That'll be our entry point. It did. We got in, and then it ran 657%. However, we were taking profits early, waiting for a pullback that never came. So I want to be holding some Solana and taking some profits along the way, but not too much because it can really run and be a rocket ship. At any rate, my targets for Sol, as again, we can see in our sell blocks, this is the visualization of the concentration of sell orders. So we have visualized where the majority of the sell orders are in Solana on Coinbase, and it's pretty much across the board on different exchanges. The point of this is the midpoints of these generally are heavy resistance, so we could see this push up and reject here, or if we have another pullback ahead of time and blast through, usually it will retest. So a couple scenarios there, but I'll be taking some profit at 280 on Solana. I'm going to go ahead and set an alert now, crossing up over 280 on there, and I usually put in the messages, they've moved it a little bit, and just say take profits, TP, sell. And generally I'd say sell half at those major milestones, maybe more, but sell half here. If you get a pullback, you can buy back dollar cost average and catch the next breakout and retest. But that's how I'll be playing Solana. All right, a couple more here. Pendle has been looking pretty good, having a bit of a pullback here to its 50-day EMA. We'll see what happens. Holding, there's some support back here around $4.70, and I do think it's in a nice uptrending channel, getting a bit oversold on our trend strength indicator. So again, we'll be looking for these to turn green again and then head higher. But as this showed here, we'd seen a bunch of sell pressure up in this $5 region on, I believe, the 4-hour chart. Sometimes these lower time frames can give us some good clues on those sell blocks. So let's take a look and see what's going on behind the scenes. I call this the Wizard of Oz indicator because it's like peeking behind the curtain. Sure enough, we can see not lots of sell pressure right in this range over the last couple days. Finally, the sellers won. I'd be looking to see it bounce around $4.75 though, down in this range. So I'll come back and put an alert on that. I also, touching the lower Bollinger Band, we have our own version of Bollinger Bands that's modified for the increased volatility in crypto. Invariably, when you see this vertical line, it will bounce. So that means it's oversold. And my friend Steve Nissan, the godfather of candlesticks, told me once on a live webinar, generally when you see the price touch a lower Bollinger Band, it will reverse, or any extreme, it'll reverse. Okay, so up here, touch the upper Bollinger Band there, went down, touched the lower Bollinger Band, and back up to the upper. We've seen this a number of times, and that's another clue that you can use. So a bit of a sell-off here in today, but I expect Pendle would bounce right around $4.80 in that market, that range. Ondo Finance has also been on our radar. Markets are really kind of weak and quiet. Last week of summer, the big traders on Wall Street are down in the Hamptons, sipping pina coladas, having a great time, and then they'll be back to their desks in September. Small chance I'll be one of them, heading out. Been invited to a private event in the Hamptons on Friday. Not sure I can break away, but we'll see. And here on Ondo Finance, putting in higher lows, nice upward trending channel, just kind of waiting for this thing to break out of this range. Probably breakout pullback to that $1.12 level, but if you can buy Ondo Finance at or under $1 and just hold on to it, makes the math real easy. If you buy it at $1 and it goes to $5, you've just 5x'd your money. A couple others here we're holding on to and watching that are just kind of languishing or a bit, but it would appear so. However, they are at their multi-year lows, like ICP and Filecoin. These we're covering those with our members and buy and entry targets, as well as potential 45x on one or two of these. So we're watching those, and a couple others in here, but nothing else looks really good. We're waiting to see if any of these can come back here. I would like to see Polkadot run. Guys, this is a potential 15x on Polkadot if it can get back to its old highs from the last cycle. And not saying that it will, but they're doing some exciting things. See a nice symmetrical wedge right here. And as with anything, if you can take out your initial investment in the near-term targets, do that, and then let the rest of it ride. Let the house's money do the work. All right, and so potentially Polkadot, if it got back to these previous highs, quite a bit higher, that's a potential 14x in there. Not saying it will, but even right here, that would be a 3x. And so do the math on that. If it were to go from $4 to $12, that would be a 3x, and then take out your initial investment in that sell block and then let it run up to these higher numbers. Okay, so with that, let's kind of dive into total market cap. I want to see that, give us a good barometer barometer, and then Bitcoin dominance. It will give us some more clues. And so Bitcoin not looking so strong here at these levels, rejecting. Not sure what's going to happen here on the weekly. Let me actually go back because this is important. On the weekly chart, our signals, our crypto mastery signals, again at cryptomastery.org, these are starting to show some weakness here with this the bearish TSI. If it gets below 20, then we have some issues. This is total market cap. Actually, I did want to pull it up for Bitcoin right here. Seeing some weakness. Generally, this is one of our sell signs when this trend strength indicator, it's a momentum indicator. When it breaks below 80 and starts printing a red dot, invariably it will continue down lower throughout that cycle. So we could certainly see a retest of 100,000 on Bitcoin. We have bearish divergence also on our RSI Pro, showing that these two are in alignment, and then also our signal line, which is a modified MACD and some other quant work, but also turning red. So when we usually see those around the same time, that is our bear market top emergency signal, but I'm not calling for that now. We have the ERI here. That's our institutional buying, programmatic buying and selling signal. It was an accidental discovery, hence the name ERI, early reversal indicator. And when it aligns, we had that trigger here. We had the ERI, the TSI going red. We have the signal line going red. You know, I'm going to be watching very carefully if we start losing the 21-week EMA and breaking below these levels. It should hold 100K and probably regroup and go higher. So I'm leaning toward altcoins running in the near term. If Sunday prints and this hasn't turned back higher, this is a weekly signal. It could bounce and still go back to green because this isn't the end of the week. So we have to wait for those weekly confirmations. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, then we know for sure. And I've already been selling Bitcoin, by the way, with stop losses in here. And I'm up only about I'm 60% in cash overall. And I sold 2/3, if not 3/4 of my Bitcoin, waiting to buy back lower. And really focusing on, I think, ETH and Sol. So these signals are aligning. I don't like to go against them because we can see in the past when we've had that turn red and below, we had further drops in Bitcoin, including, if you're new here and you haven't seen how I called the last market cycle top right here, that was our early reversal indicator there. If you're saying to yourself, that's cute, you have an arrow, that's the front-facing visualization. The actual signal is an oscillator overlaid with a Keltner channel. You don't want to look at it, it makes your eyes hurt. But our signals that have never let us down here, bearish engulfing candle, bearish ERI, those are the first two clues, followed by the TSI, that trend strength indicator going below 80, and a bearish divergence there, all of that in alignment with the signal line. That was the top of the last market. So we're watching very carefully for the alignment of those signals, and we've seen variations of it, although not as well aligned. But back here we started to see that, and then again we saw that here with these all turning red, although not perfectly aligned enough. So we did see that pullback. So I'm suggesting that Bitcoin, if it doesn't bounce here in the next few days and push higher and erase this not, because what happens with all indicators, they can repaint. That means in the intraday, they can show something, and then if there's a rally in that same day, the daily signal will change. Same on that weekly time frame. So really need to see something from Bitcoin to rally out of here, and I'm not really see that. September has generally been a down month in the year of after the halving, so we'll have to keep a look at that, an eye on that. But it could mean that the altcoins start to run. Going back to total market cap, we are seeing some sell pressure up above. If I turn on those order block detectors here, let's see, for some reason, back to a daily, we see some sell pressure up in this range on all of these. So there is strong sell pressure, and you can see that at 4.1 trillion. Right in that range, they're lining up. So that's not going to break through easily. And the question is, where's that money going to come from? We also have the secondary sell block around 3.94 trillion. So I'm not suggesting the market top is in, but I would suggest to say it's possible that we have a near term and a correction beginning here. We've got to see the 50-day exponential moving average hold here at 3.75 trillion. If we start getting down below 3.7 trillion, we have to ask ourselves, do we have a correction in play? And I'll be keeping an eye on that very carefully. Also on total too, removing Bitcoin, even stronger sell pressure. So Bitcoin not necessarily the problem. This is likely more Ethereum. And we can see that heavy overlays on this likely to push down, although it's sandwiched between a buy and sell block. So we are at a key inflection point in these markets, going to total 3, also sell pressure above, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So my guess here is we see another pullback into this 1 trillion. There's that 1 trillion, big round numbers on total 3, and then to push higher and chop through that as we get into sort of September, late September, October timeframes. If we look at total ES, excluding stable coins, it kind of shows the same, and no point in really going through all of these. Total DeFi. So there is some sell pressure in this market, and once we get above them, I have alerts on DeFi. Once we get above 140 billion, it's off to the races, and we can start layering into sort of your Lido finances, Ondo finances, and Aave, etc. So that's all I see. Don't see any divergences or open gaps on the Bitcoin futures, the CME. So Bitcoin dominance, though, we have to take a look at this. And then we'll look at a couple other charts, and then we'll call it a day. So turning off the ERI Pro just to clean up this chart a bit. And we can see this long-term trend line, very important trend line on Bitcoin dominance, needs to hold this. Probably we'll see a bit of a bounce here. So this is why it's difficult to tell what the next phases are. If we start to lose this, then we have a bigger question, what's going on here? And so seeing a bit of a bounce, just looking back in time, we saw it touched back here in 2023, and we can go even farther back if we were to look at a weekly. It doesn't really apply to the last cycle so much. It's a little bit different animal back in here. But once Bitcoin really started to drop off, and into March, April, May, we had that July correction here in the alts when this started to bounce right there. And then it came back down as we were pushing towards the market cycle top in sort of this whole range when Bitcoin itself topped out and the whole market's topped out. And then we entered the bear market. So the point is, when these key resistance kind of break, it's great for altcoins and things, but Bitcoin kind of the beginning of the end here. And we're not there yet, but I'll just draw a quick trend line to see for any similarities. So again, this long-term trend line support, we would expect to see a bounce and then a roll over. So we could see a push back into Bitcoin and hitting those new highs, which is we want to see that. We want to see Bitcoin hitting 130K, 150K, 200K potentially. But as far as dominance goes, it also gives us some clues on Altseason. So we'll be watching that. And that's about all I wanted to cover there. So let's keep going here. As far as jumping over to global M2, we can see that it was following fairly closely all the way back up and through here, then started to deviate, and stopped sort of aligning as well as it could have. So here's what I started to do, and the offset I was using is 84 days. The M2 usually leads Bitcoin by 10 to 12 weeks. 10 weeks would be 70 days. 12 weeks is 84 if you multiply by 7. But at this point, it's changing, and it's more like 90 days offset. And so by changing that, now we're seeing a closer overlay, but another deviation here. And that's really what's the concern is that Bitcoin has decoupled, it would seem, from the global M2 money supply. Now, at some point, we should see that revert and start to head higher and up into that kind of end of September range. This is where we could be pushing up to around that 135K price point that I showed in the other charts, and then pull back. Maybe we push to 150K. But and then we could see this beginning of October bleed out. Everyone expects September to be a down month, but M2 money supply was telling a different story, and then starting to see it turn back higher again. So we want to kind of see what happens in this range, and if we can get to 150K, that would be more in line with what I have been showing in the next chart. But then a pullback correction, 20, 15, 25% correction, and then push higher again. We do see money supply starting to push up higher. I'm hearing a lot of it's coming out of China. And the problem with the U.S. is even if they drop interest rates, we don't have QE starting yet. and that might not be until a little bit later. So looking at this chart here, this is that tether dominance danger zone. We are in a point where if we see tether and money flowing out of crypto, total market cap, and Bitcoin and back into stable coins, we've seen this happen before last cycle. That can be the beginning of the end. I thought it was going to be here, but I've moved it over to see maybe it's more like this. If we start seeing it push up into these zones, crypto correction zone over 5%, over 6.25% crypto crash zone, and then headed into bear market zones. We don't want to see that happening yet. And in fact, it may be even more like this for this to play out. So this would give us a little bit more time on this trend line, but all the way back since 2018, when Tether came back to that trend line, these were points where it would bounce off and create, not create corrections, but coincide with corrections, not causal. All right, so on this last study, and then we'll wind up here, this is my path to 100 to 150K Bitcoin that we've been watching, using the same study that was used to forecast the last market cycle top. So looking at just the Fibonacci's here from the high in 2017 to the low in December 18, the 3.618 on the fib retracement put us right to that market top here. And so looking at the same study here from the 2021 high down to the low gave us that 100K, that 1.618 retracement forecast to 100K. We hit that, we pulled back, no big surprise. And now we are trying to ride this fourth and final angle potentially on the rest of the bull run. However, we have had to extend it out. We were looking at something more like this, with price action being where it is now. Maybe this is the angle. Maybe we just revert back down to here and see what happens. This is sort of an art and a science, so we'll just have to see. And of course, these things never overlay exactly. We could see any of these things play out, but I was looking for a push off here. If we were to move it out, let's see, more like this, then we could do a throw over on that 150K. The 2.618 target is 154K. And if this is going to play out here, look, these are not exact and just a guideline. We could certainly see a push through 150 and have them, all the leverage longs pile back in, and then the market makers to have a huge liquidation event, come back down here. Maybe this trend line remains intact. We'll have to see. And then a push up towards that 200K area, and then we'll have to see from there. If we were able to next year see some more meaningful rate cuts and QE bombs, we could still see this and pushing in higher into the next year. So who knows, you guys. But that's all I have for you this week. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to it. That really helps us out to get these out to more people. And if you don't mind, if you want to leave a comment, if you want to see some other studies, some other coins, I'd love your feedback down below. And if you don't mind, also, if you want to share that with somebody, tag them. Really trying to get this out to more people. We're hearing that we've got great intelligence here and alpha, and so thanks everybody. So we'll talk to you soon. I'll be doing more of these and in the near future. Have a great Labor Day, safe and sound and healthy Labor Day, and we'll see you guys next week.